NBA fans woke up to this tweet this morning. Breaking: Golden State Warriors star Jimmy Butler suffered a season-ending torn right ACL, sources tell ESPN. So we're going to break it down with Tom Haberstroh now. He joins us, co-host of The Big Number. You can find his title tiers on tomthefinder.com. Tom, always appreciate your time. Initial reaction to this moment and what it means for Golden State. Obviously losing Jimmy is so key to them. What do they do now?
Yeah, the first reaction is this just sucks. There's no two ways about it. Jimmy Butler has been on an absolute heater lately against, a Western Conference field that the Warriors were starting to find their way. They were 12-4 in their last 16 games. And when you talk about Jimmy Butler himself, he was basically averaging 25-5 over the last month or so. And this is just a devastating blow to the Golden State Warriors, not just their title chances this year, but also to the whole Steph era. When you talk about Jimmy Butler and what he meant to Draymond Green and Stephen Curry, he was the championship missing piece. He gave them a shot. And now without Jimmy Butler, who's making about $50 million this year and next year, it's a big cap hit to have a guy who's not playing, but also this isn't a guy like Klay Thompson when he tore his ACL when he was 29 years old. It's not like you could project going forward, be like, all right, it's a gap year. We'll come back and we'll have Klay Thompson back in the fold in his prime. This is a guy who's 36 years old, Jimmy Butler, and for a team that was just hitting its stride, a team that I actually upgraded in my title tiers and felt like the Golden State Warriors are ready. They're ready to compete for a title again. Brandon Pajemski was playing well. I think the team kind of turned the page on the Jonathan Kuminga situation. And with Jimmy Butler tearing his ACL last night, I have no choice but to downgrade them from the complete title picture. Steph Curry's great. Draymond Green up and down this season. It's just a devastating blow to the Golden State Warriors' chances. And kind of everything is on the table now for the Warriors.
And Jimmy Butler's injury, there's two sides of it, in my opinion. There's the Warrior side, where they go from here, and there's also the Jimmy Butler side of things. Like you said, he's 36 years old. He'll be 37 at the beginning of next season. Can he come back from this? Is this the end of Jimmy Butler?
I certainly think with his competitive spirit, he'll play in the NBA again. I think he will come back. It's just at what kind of level of playing. His impact on the floor right now is an all NBA, all-star caliber player. With an ACL at age 36, you have real questions about the level that he can play at. According to InStreetClothes.com, the injury database, Jeff Stotts, who is the guru behind that website, since 2005, there's only been one player older than Jimmy Butler currently is to suffer an ACL tear, and that was Birdman Chris Anderson, who a few years back was 38 years old, and his career was over after that. We certainly hope that Jimmy Butler has a different fate than Chris Anderson, who wasn't the kind of player that Jimmy Butler was and is. And so what you're seeing for Jimmy Butler is maybe a year off, coming back at the second half of next season in hopes of securing another contract in the NBA. And that's the thing that, unfortunately, the way that today's NBA works is it's a devastating injury for Jimmy Butler personally, but for his career, what other teams are looking at is, all right, he's got a $54 million salary for this season and a $57 million salary for next season. And then his contract is off the books. So if you're the Golden State Warriors, it's not like this is a 3-year, 4-year commitment to Jimmy Butler. And so there is an opportunity for him to come back next season and kind of replenish his stock around the league and prove that he can still play at a high level. So I don't think this is a career ender for Jimmy Butler, but certainly a huge step back. We just don't have a lot of examples of guys deep into their 30s suffering an ACL tear and coming back. You know, Kyrie Irving suffered his ACL tear last year, still hasn't come back, and we don't know what kind of condition he is for the Dallas Mavericks if and when he does return this season. So we're literally kind of uncharted territory with Jimmy Butler, not only the caliber of player at age 36 suffering this kind of career-threatening injury, but also the Warriors are trying to win right now. And the Dallas Mavericks, with Kyrie Irving coming back, I'm not so sure they're in the same boat. I do think that the Golden State Warriors have a lot on the table right now, a lot of questions. And the first question I would ask is one to Stephen Curry is, what do you want to do? You want to stay here in Golden State and wait this out with Jimmy Butler, or do you want to contend right now for a championship somewhere else and make a late career change? He obviously would want to be the Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan for the Warriors, but this is a guy who's playing at a level of 30 points per game every single night. He can still bring it. And so the question for me is, where do the Warriors go from here? And I think it all starts with number 30.
Yeah, stick there then, Tom. How does this impact the trade deadline? It's only a couple weeks away.
Well, the silver lining here, Jason, is that this did happen before the trade deadline. So the Warriors could pivot here and upgrade mid-season. If this happened a month from now or a couple weeks from now, they'd be in a really tough spot because they don't have the opportunity to trade and upgrade at the deadline and bring in a real player that can fill a lot of the stuff that Jimmy Butler does. Now, what do the Warriors have? Well, they got Jonathan Kuminga's $25 million contract that they could trade, put into a deal. Jimmy Butler's $54 million salary for this season. And they have just about every first-round pick going forward they could put into a deal. So you could see the Warriors sitting down at a big conference table there at Chase Center with Mike Dunleavy Jr. and with Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, and say, all right, how many different pathways do we have here? Because we could run this back next season, wait till Jimmy Butler comes back and just see this through with this core. Or we could trade Jimmy Butler's contract right now for someone like Anthony Davis, Karl-Anthony Towns, Paul George, guys who are at the, 2-3 year commitments going forward that teams might want to move off that money. Jimmy Butler this summer becomes an expiring contract, and that could be an advantageous position for a team like the Dallas Mavericks or the Philadelphia 76ers, kind of going with a youth movement. Or, of course, when you're looking at the New York Knicks with Karl-Anthony Towns, Towns has another year in addition to Jimmy Butler's contract. Same with Anthony Davis and same with Paul George. So it's a real question for the Golden State Warriors at this point is, do you kind of double down with this core in the same way that the Giannis Antetokounmpo Milwaukee Bucks have doubled down around Giannis Antetokounmpo and say, look, we're going to do everything in our power to maximize this window with Steph Curry and Draymond Green until the wheels fall off, until Steph Curry hangs it up. We're going to keep going and push all the chips to the middle. And they certainly have the assets to go after a big name player, whether it's Anthony Davis, Karl-Anthony Towns, or even Paul George, who someone they were after a couple years ago before he joined the Philadelphia 76ers. Now with Draymond Green and Steph Curry without Jimmy Butler, this is an opportunity for the Warriors to upgrade at the deadline and see if those other teams are willing to take on Jimmy Butler's contract, which becomes expiring next season, and they can wipe off their big salaries off the books a year sooner than they otherwise could.
Do you think that there is a chance that Steph Curry is playing elsewhere in the future?
Oh yeah, I think there's a real chance. I mean, Steph Curry, we've seen how much he enjoys playing with LeBron James and Team USA, and with of course the All-Star games of years past. I would love to see it personally, Steph and LeBron playing together on the same team in the NBA, not just in the All-Star or in Team USA. And the Lakers right now are sputtering. And so you could see a scenario in which Stephen Curry and LeBron say, hey, how do we link up now that Jimmy Butler's hurt? This is kind of an interesting situation for Steph Curry because, of course, Jimmy Butler, with him in uniform, they were a title contender, 46-22 with Jimmy Butler in uniform. And that equates to a 55-win team over the last 2 years. They've basically been playing at a number 2 seed, number 3 seed level with Jimmy Butler. But without him, Steph Curry has to realize they're 2-5 without Jimmy Butler in uniform over the last 2 seasons. That's a 23-win team equivalent. So he has to be real pragmatic about this situation and talk to potentially LeBron James or talk to somebody, I don't know, with the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets just retired number 30. His father's number is going up in the rafters. Del Curry, they just announced that they're going to retire that number. So it'd be a little an amazing story of Steph Curry potentially coming back home to where he grew up in Charlotte, just with a different number. Or maybe that 30 they delay that rafter raising of his jersey and retire it a little after Steph Curry comes. But I do think that Steph Curry, the door was always open to him going elsewhere, but it was only open a crack. Now Jimmy Butler, his injury certainly opens it up a little bit more than that. And I still think he's going to be a Warrior for life. But if he says, look, this has run its course here, I want to compete at the highest level, where can I do that? I think that conversation becomes a lot more real right now.
To be clear, though, Tom, if he's going to team up with LeBron, that would be in LA. It would not be LeBron going to Golden State, correct?
It would be tough with the contracts that they have. Austin Reeves is not a big contract. It's not like you could swap Austin Reeves and get Stephen Curry. The cap stuff right now with the apron rules, it makes things super complicated. You probably would have to bring in 3-team or 4-team deals in order to get a swap like that happening. But the Lakers could pivot in ways that, they just acquired Luka Doncic this time last year. So everything is on the table. But Steph Curry, with his contract, it's going to be almost impossible for the Lakers, to acquire him to pair with Luka and LeBron James. Just they have too many high salaries on the books unless something crazy happens. I don't see him linking up with LeBron in LA, but something where LeBron goes to Golden State is a lot more likely. And then you move Jimmy Butler's contract to another team packaged with draft picks, because the only draft pick that the Warriors have outgoing that they don't own is 2030 going to Washington, and it's top 20 protected. So we're talking the 27 pick, the 29 pick. They could send these multiple first-round picks into a deal, attach that to Jimmy Butler's $54 million contract that becomes an expiring next season, and reload. So it'll be interesting what the Warriors do from here. But I got my eyes on Anthony Davis, on Karl-Anthony Towns, and of course, Paul George, veterans on teams that might be looking to offload those players long-term money for a guy like Steph Curry. I mean, for a guy to potentially pair next to Steph Curry.
You mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns. The Knicks lost again last night. There's been a lot of buzz about Karl-Anthony Towns potentially getting dealt at the trade deadline. Is that the answer for the Knicks? And if not, what is the answer for New York?
Caroline, your guess is as good as mine. The New York Knicks, after winning the NBA Cup, have been a disaster. Defensively, they haven't been able to stop anybody. Karl-Anthony Towns before the season was not really glowing about Mike Brown's offense, saying, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about how things go. It wasn't like, yeah, I'm really excited to play for Mike Brown. Things are great. Can't wait to get training camp started and playing for this team. And there's just been kind of a weird vibe around the Knicks lately, and especially when you got two guys offensively skewed, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. It puts so much pressure on Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Mitchell Robinson to defend and offensive rebound and cover up for their defensive liabilities. And with Karl-Anthony Towns, it's one thing if you got Jalen Brunson. He's a small guy. We get it. Like, there's a lot of successful smaller players who are responsible for the offensive engine. But if you're a defensive, or if you're a big man and you're not able to play at a high level as a rim protector, it makes things so much more compromising for the team as a whole. So Karl-Anthony Towns, if he's not averaging 25 a game and being an all-NBA talent offensively, which he isn't right now, it is a really tough look for the New York Knicks if they're not getting that from him offensively. Defensively, he's not that guy. So right now, I can understand why Knicks fans are just looking at this roster and be like, what happened over the last month? And Karl-Anthony Towns is a big reason why they've taken a big step back lately. Is he just hasn't been himself. And I wonder if he is looking at this and saying, look, I'm not able to be the best version of myself with the Knicks. Maybe I look elsewhere.
All right, so Tom, let's go to something positive here. Even in a loss, I was sitting there last night, even in a loss, watching the Celtics give the Pistons absolutely everything they could handle in Detroit. Right, like that game was absolutely incredible. And the whole time I kept thinking about all the videos we're seeing now about Tatum out there, and everybody's looking at the warm ups, everybody's looking at the dunking. Is there some hope, if you're a Celtics fan right now, that you're going to see this Disney storybook ending? Tatum is back, and the Celtics go on a massive run that takes them to the NBA championship.
Man, I don't see Jason Tatum getting back and playing at the highest level, playing all NBA, all-star level talent. But man, I remember when Paul George came back, and it took him like just an off season to get back to being like Paul George after he broke his leg. And I think that's what you're going to see here from Jason Tatum. If he does come back with like 10 games to go in the season, I don't think you can expect him after the long layoff to be all-star Jason Tatum, but just being another piece. Guys, the Boston Celtics without Jason Tatum have the second best offense in the NBA. They're this number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. It's insane what Joe Mazzulla has done with the Boston Celtics this season. And so even if he's not Jason Tatum of old, they're still going to be competing for the East Championship, which is insane to think about. So Jason Tatum, it's a great story if he comes back. I think Boston fans have to kind of temper their expectations about the caliber of player that he would be when he comes back in season without a training camp to ramp up with the team. But man, it's a great story. It looks awesome on workouts, but as we see time and time in the NBA, workouts are totally different than on-court, real 5-on-5 NBA basketball. But rest assured, the Celtics are going to be okay this season, and they have the second best offense in the NBA, number 2 seed. And there is a small chance that the Boston Celtics are going to reclaim that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. It's just been a crazy year in the Eastern Conference, and the Celtics are right there.
You guys can follow him on social media at Tom Haberstroh. Check out the big number, obviously, and TomTheFinder.com for his title tiers. Got jokes saying tempered expectations in Boston. Tom, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and for the brilliance. Thank you, man.
You got it.
It's great stuff from Tom and Caroline. Like, look, I was watching last night. Jaylen Brown had the game winner. I thought it was going to be the game winner. Couldn't get it to fall, but still, the Celtics, the overachieving of the Celtics is one of the best stories so far in the NBA. It's been fun to watch this.
It's been incredible, and I've been called out by several Celtics outlets by saying, hey, you know what? The Celtics should just tank. You don't have your star marquee franchise player for the entirety of the season. No Jason Tatum. Just embrace the suck for 1 year. Try and get a lottery pick, but I've been proven wrong.
Now, let's go. We'll keep you updated on everything. We'll be back right here tomorrow, 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for hanging.